This is my talk, How to Build Your Brand as a Programmer. And I'm super excited to be here with you all. And again, for coming, really appreciate it, especially people that are here in the middle of the night. That's so awesome. And it's so cool to see so many people from different countries. So, what are you going to learn today? Well, you're going to learn why you should build your brand as a programmer. And you're also going to learn how to build your brand as a programmer. So, we're going to go over some strategies to get that done. But let me tell you my story. So in college, I tried to learn to program, but I failed. And I graduated, I had a major in political science, and I couldn't find a job. And so I decided to learn to program. And so I bought all the books and courses. You can see to the right, Think Python is the first book I ever bought. And it's actually a great book. I highly recommend it. And 6 months later, I got my first interview at a company called Eat Club, which is a startup. And my friend got me the interview. And unfortunately, I completely bombed it. And it was super embarrassing. So I had to go back to the drawing board and study a little bit harder. But eventually, I did end up getting a job as a software engineer at eBay, which was really amazing and a super cool opportunity. I really enjoyed my time there. And so I decided to write a book called The Selftaught Programmer that would share the experience that I gained and share the knowledge that I gained going from a complete beginner to a software engineer. So I called it The Celltop Programmer, the definitive guide to programming professionally. And to my disbelief, it has now sold more than 150,000 copies worldwide. And my Udemy course of the same name has 160,000 students, which has been really cool to see it have an impact on so many people. I also started a Facebook group called Selftaught Programmers, and it's really a community for programmers or aspiring programmers that don't have a computer science degree to all get together and form one big community of people helping each other. And today we have over 60,000 members. And I just want to share a few success stories because that's really the coolest part about all of this. It's just been seeing all the success stories. So we have someone named Victor in the group who had absolutely no experience programming, and then after 1 year ended up as an intern using Python at a major tech company, and Dragon, who went from a complete beginner to a software engineer without a degree. So it's been so cool seeing these success stories. And the success of my book and Facebook group led to a publishing deal with Wiley for my second book, which just came out actually this month. It is called The Self-Taught Computer Scientist. And I've been featured in a few outlets like Forbes and the Next Web, and I even got the chance to give the opening keynote speech at PyCon JP. So all this helped me land my dream job with Amanda at Vonage. I get to build community among developers in a corporate environment, which is really, really cool. It's basically an extension of what I was doing before. Over the past several years, I've been creating these communities among new coders, and now I get to work a little bit more on creating community among established software engineers. But still, that's what I'm really passionate about is building community among programmers, and I get to do that at work. So that is awesome. And if you're not familiar with Vonage, we are an award-winning cloud communications provider that has a bunch of different APIs that help developers do things like send text messages, make phone calls, and a lot more. So why does this all matter? Well, most programmers don't bother to build a brand. So taking the time to build one can give you a huge advantage in the job market. You stand out in interviews, you might get a promotion based on it. And some people in this audience also might consider being a developer advocate. A lot of people make the transition to developer advocate from software engineer, and it is a really fun job. You get to go to conferences and give talks, write blog posts, go to events like this, create YouTube videos. It's a really, really fun job if you're at all interested in marketing and you also really like coding. It was a perfect job for me because I really like to code, but I also didn't want to give up everything else that I was doing with building community. And so it was the perfect fit for me. And so maybe some of you will be interested in pursuing that career path as well. And building a brand as a programmer, even if you don't want to be a developer advocate, can lead to really cool opportunities like publishing a book or being a guest on a podcast. It helps you network and meet new people. And overall, it's just a lot of fun. So how do you build a brand as a coder? This is a book called Traction, which is one of my favorite books, and it's all about how startups can gain traction. And it lists, I think, 20 different channels that you can use to gain traction for your startup. I know you can use the same channels to build your brand, but as you can see, there's a lot of different ones. There's viral marketing, public relations, search engine marketing, offline ads, email marketing. There's a lot, and you should do whatever you enjoy and whatever plays to your strengths. But I do think that there's a few top options for software engineers, and these are the ones that I'm going to focus on in this talk. So we've got public speaking, social media, starting a community, writing a book, and creating an online course. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. And I'm going to start with public speaking and highlight someone who does this very well in the developer community at the start of each of those 5 things. So for the first, public speaking, we've got Tanya Sims, who also works with Amanda and I, and you can Google her to check out her talks. She's been doing a really great job of giving talks I've really, really enjoyed. So check her out. And the thing that I recommend starting with, if you want to build your brand as a programmer by talking, is to try to speak at a conference, of course. So there's programming conferences all over the world, and you don't have to start with a conference. You can do an event like this, but just try to talk somewhere. And speaking is a great chance to travel and meet people in different coding communities, and you get to share your expertise, which is really fun. So here are the steps to speaking at a conference if you're interested. First, look for conferences that are a good fit for your talk. And at some point, they're going to open something called a call for papers. And you might want to subscribe to their newsletter so that you know when this happens. And that's basically an open invitation to craft a speech for this conference and submit it. And so you want to craft your talk and submit it to the conference. So what's in a call to paper? So it generally consists of the name of your talk, your elevator pitch, the description, and why you. So how do you write an eye-catching speech name? Well, my top hint for this, or tip or trick rather, is to try writing 20 or more speech names before you pick one. So it's always my first instinct, whether I'm writing a blog post or a speech name, to just come up with one speech name and that's just it. But it's actually really helpful to try to write 20 different speech names, and you'll be surprised with what you come up with, like at number 15, 16, etc. Next, you want to nail your elevator pitch. So make the reader excited. And then my other tip is to use Grammarly to make sure that not only is your grammar correct, but also Grammarly will tell you how engaging your elevator pitch is. So let's take a look at a pitch that I wrote. If you look at the right, you can see that Grammarly rated it very engaging. So it's really helpful to have a third-party opinion, even if it's AI, tell you whether your elevator pitch is engaging or not. So you can go ahead and read this. I will not read it to you, but hopefully it's engaging. Grammarly thinks it is, but that's a great first step to make sure that you're headed in the right direction with your elevator pitch. Next, you want to write a solid description. So here you just include everything listeners will learn during your talk. And then why you? So why are you the right person to give this talk? So you want to use social proof here as much as possible and let them know you're going to help them fill seats, because conferences want people to come. That's why they exist. So why can you help them fill seats, and why would the audience be interested in this talk specifically? So if you can talk here a little bit about past experience you have giving talks and how many people came to that talk and your social media following, that's actually a really good place to include that type of information that not everyone includes. So say you have like 20,000 Twitter followers or something, you might want to mention that there, because they're going to think, okay, this is why this is the best person to give this talk. And then also just talk about how this subject is relevant, why it's relevant to the people that are going to be there, and how it's going to help them become better programmers or learn something that they didn't already know. So next up is social media. So social media is another great way to build your brand as a programmer. And someone who inspires me here is Dan. And he created a JavaScript framework, I think Redux, and he has a big following on Twitter. And I always see him pop up on my Twitter, and I feel like he just uses that platform
really, really well to build his brand. So that inspires me. And you want to think about what you're good at when you're deciding what social network you want to use. So if you're really good at writing, Twitter or Facebook are good options. If you're talented at design, maybe you want to try Instagram. Or if you're really good behind camera, that can be a little rare. Maybe you want to try TikTok or YouTube, but really play to your strengths as much as you can. You also want to stick with one platform until you build a following. So don't just jump on every single social network. And of course, they're always creating new social networks. There's always the hot new thing, like Clubhouse right now is sort of like the cool new social network, or I don't know, there's always a cool new social network, TikTok. But that doesn't mean you have to jump on that. It's kind of like with frameworks, right? You don't have to jump on every single new web development framework that comes out. In the same way, you don't have to jump on every social media platform, and it can actually hold you back, because if you're not going to get traction on any one channel. So stick with one until you gain a following, then move on from there. Jab, 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 hook is probably the best social media advice I've ever gotten. It's from Gary Vee's book of the same name. And what that means is give, 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 ask. So a lot of people get on social media and they just ask, buy my book, come to my event, do this, do that. And that's absolutely not what you want to do. Instead, you want to give as much value as possible and keep giving value. And only once you've given a sufficient amount of value should you ask your audience to do anything. So what can you give? You can give advice. You can post articles that people will find helpful. You can answer specific questions that people in your audience have or people in your niche have. You can make people laugh with memes. You can give an ebook away. I've given a ton of ebooks away and had some success doing that. I love giving stuff away. I feel like that's one of the secret ingredients to social media, is just to give as much stuff away for free that people actually want, not junk, as possible. So just in general, give anything away that your audience will find valuable. Only then do you ask for anything. And when you do ask for something, you want to make sure that your hooks are similar to your jabs. So don't just say, buy this and here's the link. Use a good image, tell a story, and try to make it feel like an organic social media post. So we're hardwired as humans to respond to stories. So when you're throwing a hook that is intended to get someone to sign up for an event or go to a webinar or buy your book or anything, you want to tell a story. So this posted really well for me. I posted it in my Facebook group. You can see it's a big picture that catches the eye and it looks like an organic post. I told a whole story here about my journey going from a beginner to a software engineer and everything that happened. And there was conflict. That's the key to a good story, is adding in conflict. So basically, you go up in your journey of accomplishing something, but then you hit trials and tribulations and it comes crashing down, but then you figure it out in the end. I've actually read a bunch of books on telling stories, which you might want to consider doing, because that can help you express yourself better and get a lot more traction on social media if you actually understand the arc of a story and how to tell one. It's not super complicated. I feel like I made that sound more complicated than it is, but the point I'm making is tell a story when you are asking people to do something, because you'll have much better results. Also, of course, use hashtags. It helps your content get discovered by more people on Twitter, on Instagram. If you use a hashtag, then more people are going to see it. And of course, create excellent content. So this goes without saying. It's sort of what everyone says, but there's so much competition on social media right now. Everyone wants to be a content creator. And so you have to create really good content to stand out. And this is what I feel like is often left out when people are giving advice on how to social media. Most people say, okay, use hashtags, create really good content, but actually joining a new platform is a huge advantage. So new platforms are significantly easier to grow on. So right now, for instance, it is so much easier to grow a following on TikTok than Instagram, because TikTok is new and is pushing content to way more people. Whereas like 5 years ago, Instagram was significantly easier to grow on than it is right now. So I think that's sort of a missing ingredient that people often don't mention. You can also speak at events or conferences. So for example, if you go to an event, you can throw out your social media username rather, in this case, at Cory Althoff. So make sure to follow me at Cory Althoff. I'm on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and I would love to connect with all of you. So the next thing that you can do is a community. And Saren is someone who really inspires me in this regard. She created a community called Code Newbies, which is a really, really cool community. And it consists of a podcast. They've got a Twitter group chat that they do every week using a specific hashtag, Code Newbie, which is really popular on Twitter. And they have a conference. So I've definitely been inspired by her community building. And how do you start building a community? Well, first, you want to find your niche. So, do people feel passionate about your topic? That's what's really important. So, I think the reason why my Selftaught Programmers Facebook group did well was because people feel really passionate about learning how to code outside of school. So, you need to make sure that people feel passionate about what you're talking about. And when you first start a group, I'm going to be talking in this section about Facebook groups because that's what I have experience with. But you could do this with a Reddit group. You could do this with a Google developer group. It should apply to everything, but I'm going to talk about Facebook because that's what I know. So when you first start a group, you have to create all the content yourself because at the beginning, you're going to be the only one creating content. So you have to make sure that it's good. And I want to give a couple tips for creating engaging Facebook content in case anyone here is interested in creating a Facebook group. So you want to use Facebook's built-in features. So 2 features I use often are polls and posts with colorful backgrounds. This is an example. You can see it has a really bright background and big font. So this is built into Facebook being able to create this, and it tends to do well. Or polls do really well. For example, here I asked what your favorite language is for coding, and those always tend to do really well. And other types of content that perform well on Facebook and social media in general for people interested in tech are memes. Coders and people in tech love memes. So definitely try sharing a few memes. Other types of high performing content are questions, starting a conversation. If you go into a group of coders and you ask them what the best programming language is, you're definitely going to get a big response. Starting a debate, interesting images, stories. These all perform well in groups and social media in general. Content that does not perform well on Facebook and a lot of social networks in general is just anything that moves the user off that platform. So you want to avoid links when possible. Sometimes when you're throwing a hook, you should absolutely use links, but you don't want to mistakenly be using links in jabs because Facebook or any other social network is going to penalize you for moving people off the platform. So you want to create organic content on that platform and not redirect other people when you're doing jobs. So how do you grow your Facebook group? Well, make your group public. I had a big debate on whether or not my group should be public or private. And the thing about public groups is they grow much faster because more people can see them. You can also do some paid promotion, so run ads or do giveaways. And finally, I'm going to talk about how to create a happy community. So you want to find moderators. So post in your community asking for help and then create post guidelines. So ask each member to review them when they sign up for your group and make sure that, for instance, with my group, we have 5 questions that always come up. What's your favorite IDE? And a few other things like that. And so in our guidelines, we just say you can't ask those questions. So that will help keep the quality of the group high. And for Facebook groups, I recommend approving posts manually. It takes a lot of effort, but as your group gets bigger, you get a lot of spam. And so I recommend having someone approve them and actually look. So the next strategy that you can use to grow your brand as a programmer is blogging. So Lawrence Bradford is someone who inspires me here. Lawrence started Learn to Code with Me, which is a blog that gets a ton of traffic and has really great content. So for blogging, it's all about SEO, which is search engine optimization, getting Google to show your website. And to do that, you have to think a lot about keywords. So you have to know what keywords are, what keywords you're targeting, and you can use a tool like SEMrush or Ubersuggest to help with your SEO. So this is what happens when you type learn Python into SEMrush. It gives you a bunch of really useful information like what is this keyword's volume? How many people type this into Google or other search engines every single month? And you can see in the US and globally. And very importantly, what is the keyword difficulty? So this is ranked as very hard. How hard is it for you to get to the #1 page of Google for this keyword? So ideally, you want to find a keyword that has high volume and a low keyword difficulty. And in SEO, the best article wins. So you want to do your best to answer all the questions someone typing those keywords would have. And time on page matters. So Google sees it as a positive sign the longer someone stays on your blog, because that means their questions are getting answered and they're interacting positively with your content, hopefully. And so you can try using videos to increase time on page. So you can add a YouTube video to your article to give additional information and complement your article and to keep people on the page longer. And you might want to try long form content because that often performs well on Google. You can also use a tool to check your SEO. So SEMrush has a writing assistant that you can check out that goes into Google Docs. That's what I use. And it basically just gives you a bunch of suggestions that you can take and make to your article until you get a really high SEO score, which helps make sure that your articles rank well. And so Google also takes traffic into consideration. So when you're blogging, you want to create a newsletter so that you can send additional traffic to your blog. You want to try browser notifications. You want to share your posts on social media. Do your best to send as much traffic to your posts as possible. And the most important thing is links. So how do you build links? Well, you can submit your content to Reddit, Hacker News, etc., and you can let other blog owners know about your articles. You can email them and say, hey, I just wrote this article. Maybe you want to check it out. And also another tip is that when you mention a person or a company in your blog post, to let them know. So for example, I'll often write articles that have like 30 different companies in them. For example, I wrote this article called fun APIs that you can use or something like that. And it highlights 30 or so APIs. And so in that case, I can go through and email all those companies and let them know, hey, I wrote an article about you and I included your API in it and maybe you would like to share it. So next up is writing a book. This is another great way to build a brand as a programmer. So Brett Slatkin is someone who inspires me here. I actually had the chance to meet him at PyCon a few years ago. He was really nice. And he wrote a book called Effective Python. He's also a principal software engineer at Google. So he's done a great job of using books to advance his career. And you definitely need to think pretty heavily whether you want to write a book or not. It's a really big time commitment. It takes a ton of effort. Both of my books have taken me a year to write. And so to paraphrase Tim Ferriss, he said, if you're going to write a book, write a word that I will not say, book. Basically, the idea is you really need to commit. So you can't go into this half-heartedly. You absolutely need to be 100% sure you're going to put the effort in, because it can harm you to write a book that gets bad reviews and people don't like, and that's going to show up on Google when people are searching you. And so if you're going to write a book, write a book. So how do you publish a technical book? So of course, there's two different ways that are popular. One is the traditional route and the other is self-publishing. I've done both. The traditional route is to write a manuscript, which is basically a pitch for your book, and you submit it to publishers. Hopefully one of them is interested, and then they give you an advance and you write the book and they publish it and you get a small percentage of the royalties. Self-publishing works a little different. You don't need anyone's permission. You write your book, you make it for sale on sites like Amazon, really mostly just Amazon, because most people that self-publish, 90% of their sales come from Amazon or more. Amazon allows you to print on demand, which is really cool. So you can put your book on there, and whenever someone orders a paperback copy, Amazon will print it for you and ship it. And you also make a lot more money in terms of percentage. So you get like 70% of the royalties for Kindle, I believe, something around there. Whereas with a traditional publisher, the deal for ebooks is usually like 25%, and you make a significantly higher percentage, of course, on paperback books as well. So you get higher royalties, but then you're probably not going to be in bookstores, which is a disadvantage. But you can actually provide wholesale distribution using Amazon, which is really cool. So Amazon has an option to make your book available to wholesalers. If you check it, then companies like Target and Walmart and stuff can actually buy your book directly through Amazon, and you can end up in bookstores that way, which is pretty cool. So the thing I want to say is that self-publishing allows you to bypass the gatekeepers, which is so cool. It's just so cool that in this day and age, if you want to write a book, you don't need anyone's permission. So I really love that. And so I would definitely consider self-publishing, because I think that it's a great way to get your idea out there without anyone's permission. It can be really hard to get a publisher to actually pick up your book. And so if you have an idea that you're really passionate about, bypass the gatekeepers and just publish it yourself. That's what I did. So on Amazon, reviews determine sales. So you want to spend a lot of time giving away free copies to reviewers to try to get your reviews up on Amazon, because that plays a huge role. So again, giving away stuff for free. Before you have a lot of reviews, I definitely recommend just giving your book to as many people for free as you possibly can. You can also use SEO on Amazon. So a lot of these things apply to each other. So for example, Amazon is essentially a search engine. So you can try to optimize your page for certain keywords. Okay, so the final thing that I'm going to talk about, the final strategy for building your brand as a programmer that I will be going over in this talk, is to create an online course. And Al Stuger is someone who inspires me in this regard. He has over 1 million students. He wrote a really popular book called Automate the Boring Stuff with Python, and it's really great. His Udemy course is awesome too. And like I said, it has over 1 million students. So amazing results. And creating a course is much easier than writing a book. So if you're not sure whether you should create a course or a book, I would definitely go with a course. And everyone here has something that they could teach. So brainstorm ideas. I'm sure you can come up with something that you could teach other people. So if one person from this talk ends up making a course, that'll be really cool. And I hope that happens. And let me know if you decide to take any of these tips, if you decide to write a book or create a course or start a blog or anything like that. Definitely let me know on Twitter, because I would love to hear that. And so how do you decide what to teach? Think about what you're an expert in. And you can also use Udemy's tool to find courses, which is pretty cool. So if you go to Udemy, they have a tool for instructors. You can sign up for free. You don't have to actually be an instructor to use this, but you can type in anything and then see the student demand, the number of courses that already exist for that topic, and then the median monthly revenue and the top monthly revenue. So these are the results for typing in Python, which is obviously very competitive, but the top course earns $118,000 a month, which is pretty hard to believe. I mean, that's just insane. But you might want to look for a topic that is slightly less competitive, because it's going to be a little bit difficult to be one of the top Python courses on Udemy. But if there's something that is a little less known, a topic that less people are teaching, that can be a really great opportunity. So when it comes time to create your course, you can film using your laptop camera and mic. It's not as hard as people think to make a course, but I would consider hiring an editor to help out, just to add graphics and clean things up a little bit. And also you want to make exercises to go along with each lesson. So I'm going to talk very quickly about publishing yourself versus on something like Udemy or another third party. But I started by selling my own courses on my own website. And the big thing is, how much time do you have? So for me, that took up a ton of time. I did make more money, but I had to deal with customer support and stuff like that. And then you have to attract your own audience. So think about, do you want to spend less time and tap into another third party's audience, but make less money because you sell your courses for significantly less on a platform like Udemy? They sell for like $8 to $25, whereas you can sell a course on your own website for maybe $100 plus. So those are the big things to think about. And make sure that your students have a place to answer questions. So consider making a Facebook group for your course. And something I did for my course, which I thought was really cool, is I made a hashtag for it. So there's wins structured throughout the course. And every time you accomplish one of the wins, you're encouraged to go and share it on Twitter with that hashtag. And then everyone can see everyone else's wins and be inspired. So I thought that was pretty cool. Finally, I'm going to talk about marketing your book or course because the strategy is essentially the same, and it's to give it away for free. That I think is the magic ingredient. Give your book or course away for free to as many people as you can. Get good reviews, and with word of mouth, it should spread. So you can also use coupon sites. If you type in Udemy free coupon sites, you can find a bunch of courses, not courses, a bunch of websites where you can submit your course and they will share that coupon with their audience. A few books that I recommend: Gary Vee's Jab, Jab, Right Hook, which I mentioned earlier, taught me a lot about social media. Influence, definitely one of the best marketing books of all time. So definitely pick that up if you have any interest in marketing. And Your First 1,000 Copies, if you want to write a book, that helped me out a lot as well. So I'm going to talk really quickly about how we are building community at Vonage. So we have the Vonage Startup Program. You can go to developer.vonage.com/startups to learn more, but it's a program that startups can apply to. And if you're selected, you get free credits for our API. So we let you use our API for free to scale your company. And you also get mentorship and a few other awesome benefits. So definitely check that out. We have our Twitter account, Vonage Devs. That's our main social media platform that we use, is at Vonage Devs on Twitter. And we are always posted on there. So we try to build community through social media. And then finally, we do a ton of blogging. So check out learn.vonage.com if you want to see some of our content. I'm always on there writing. If you type in fun APIs into Google, you can see my article that one of the articles that I've written, and then click on my name and you can see all the articles that I've ever written. Amanda writes on there too. So definitely building community through SEO and blogging. And hopefully I gave you all some value during this presentation. Did a few jabs so I can throw one hook, and that is to try our API. So if you go to dashboard.nextmo.com/signup, you can use this coupon code PDXVON21 and get a bunch of free credits. And you can use our SMS API to send text messages. We do two-factor authentication, which you can get set up in like 1 minute. Sending a text message takes less than like 3 minutes too. We do video conferencing, live streaming, if you're interested in that. And we also have an API for making phone calls. So a bunch of different communication APIs. You can check those out if you're interested. And I want to say thank you to Amanda for having me. Thank you all for coming. This has been really, really cool. And I look forward to hopefully answering some questions and getting to know you all. So thank you all. And make sure to connect with me on Twitter at Cory Althoff. I respond to every message I get. So I'd love to hear your thoughts and hear about what you all are doing. So thank you all so much. I'm going to go ahead and jump back in. Hey, everyone.
We had to see people were talking the entire time. This was very, very engaging. And I don't know if you can see, Cory, on the top right, there is a Q&A tab. There's many questions there. I probably don't have time to take all of them, but let's go in the order that people asked. The first one from Alina is, do you have a product to sell besides book? Do you plan to create one?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I've got my 2 books and my course, and I do have something in the works. I'm not going to say what it is right now, but I have something in the works. So stay tuned, follow me on Twitter, and I will be announcing that probably in like 4 months. But I do have something that I'm working on, but not ready to talk about it yet. And
secrets.
Yeah.
Another question from Alina. Would you like to be a full-time content creator?
That is a great question. And no, I don't think so. The reason is it's really, really hard. And like, you have to hit, if you want to be a full-time content creator, like my wife does it full-time, and you have to really hit huge. So you have to hit really large numbers. And my niche isn't large enough. So like, so we're talking about like tech and programming and stuff isn't really enough to just solely rely off, for example, views. Because like, if you want to only do content creation and you don't want to, some people that they create content, but then they have a book, but then that leads to a course that's like $500. And then that leads to like their $10,000 exclusive getaway to code on like a Caribbean island or something. And then there's their $100,000 mastermind. I wasn't really interested in that. Like, I don't know, that just didn't appeal to me. So that's one route. And then the other route is just to have like massive views and have like literally be getting like hundreds of millions, if not billions of views. And I don't have that ability. Like there's not enough people that are I haven't really seen anyone in tech be able to pull off like, all right, I'm getting like hundreds of millions of views to the point. There's one person there. Have you seen Tech Lead at all?
Yeah. As a tech lead.
Yeah, like maybe him, like he does a pretty good job, but then at the same time, and then he links to his courses and stuff. He's gone pretty viral, but he's like one of the only people I've seen that's like tech, like, and is able to get like a lot of views to the level of like, I would feel comfortable doing that as like the only thing I do. So sorry if that was a long answer, but that was a really good question.
No, I love it. It was very personal. Thank you. So another one from a different person, from Ross. With online presence, is it better to keep a personal and professional persona, or is it just present yourself as what you want to be seen as? Do you understand the question?
Yeah, that's a good question. Let's see. I have to think about it. I've never thought about that. I think it depends on what you are like with your personal persona on social media. So like for me, I'm not someone who's going to be writing anything that I don't want anyone from work to see. Essentially, like, I'm not super, like, I don't really share a lot. Like I do, but I don't know if that makes sense. Like I'm very public in the sense that anything I post on social media, I'd be fine with anyone seeing. And I with social media, that's probably the best attitude, right? Like, I mean, it's the internet, and I think I would just have one and be like, this is just okay for anyone. Because that's sort of implying that like, oh, there's stuff you wouldn't want people to see. But since it is the internet, I would just, I treat everything on the internet as professional. Is basically my answer.
So there's a similar question here from Alina. Any opinion on using your real name versus a nickname for your social presence?
Yeah, I definitely go with my real name. That's what I use for everything. I think that, what's the advantage of using a nickname? It can be kind of, it can be, I guess it can be cool sometimes to do that, but I think it looks better. My personal preference is always use the real name. I just think it looks better. And you can say like, this is me. Like people are interested in me. They're following me. Whereas if you use a nickname or something, it's sort of like, oh, they're following this like persona or this page, or like maybe it's like a meme page, or it's so I tend to think that it looks a little better to use your own personal name.
Yeah, like there is that one on Twitter, I'm developer. There's like
I've seen that one.
That you don't even know who is the person behind
right.
it. So it's not even like building a brand of a person.
Yeah, and if that person was doing an interview, I bet if they used their real name, more interviewers would be like, "Oh, like I recognize your work." But
just like that guy from Amazon, Cory, like he's very good at that. I don't know if you heard of him. Let's see another question here. Do you still have time, Cory?
Yeah, we can go through them all. I don't have anything after this.
Cool, thank you. So from Ross, is it better to start a social media presence fresh with fears of potential past comments, tweets, posts being brought back up?
If you're worried about that, then probably. But I'd also probably go through and delete anything that you feel is not, problematic. I would go through and delete everything. But yeah, that potentially could be worth it. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I've been watching a lot of like politician movies. So if you're afraid, definitely delete.
Yeah, if you have an account that you feel like is problematic, I would just delete it. Most likely. So yeah.
So there is a question here from Talia, and also Suze gave her opinion. So I'll just read the two of them, Cory. Is developer advocate another name for developer content creator? And Suze said, content creation is just a part of developer advocacy. Developer advocacy is about being the voice of the dev inside the business and the voice of the business to the dev.
Yeah, so I think that content creation is, I agree, just part of developer advocacy. Amanda and I are sort of general developer advocates at Vonage. So we're focused pretty heavily on content, but then there's other people on our team that are assigned to a specific SDK, like the Python SDK or the .NET SDK. And so they maintain the SDK, and then they do a little bit of content, but that's not their primary focus. So it's a pretty wide field. There's a lot of different options. So you can be more on the content side, or you can be more on the coding side. It really depends on the company and the position. But in general, developer advocates, they talk at conferences. They do generally create some form of content, and then they generally do some amount of coding.
Yeah, I agree with Cory. So there's a question here that's very general, Cory. So reply to the extent you would like. So Sina shared, great talk, thank you. I just spoke. Oh, just by the way, 2 people gave a thumbs up. So it seems that this is a question people want to know. Great talk, thank you. I just spoke at a conference yesterday, but I don't know how it could help me / what I should do next.
Yeah, right. That's a good question, and glad you enjoyed the talk. Thanks for coming. So my question, first of all, is did you connect with people or push people to follow you on social media? Because that can definitely be helpful. As I mentioned in the talk, trying to connect with people on social media so you can build your following and meet new people. Did you network with anyone? And I kind of hate that word, but make connections, talk to people, make friends. That's a way that it can help you. And I think with something like that, it's not like a one-to-one thing where it's just like, oh, I gave this talk and now this thing happened. I think if you just consistently give talks, spontaneously things will happen that you didn't really anticipate. Like you might get a job offer, someone might contact you because they saw your talk and ask if you want to work for them. It's not something that you can really measure super easily, but you sort of have to trust in the process that if you keep getting your name out there and making new friends, that eventually something good will happen.
Yeah, there's one thing I always say, Cory, that when you go like to local events, probably the people who can hire you, or maybe the people that you can hire for your company, that's where they are.
Right. And of course you don't want to be like, oh, hey, hire me. Because people
yeah.
So you don't want to, you don't want to like, and not saying you would ever do that, but yeah, just throwing it out there. You kind of have to just make friends, and have professional contacts and stuff. But I've definitely seen people at events like that are just like immediately asked to get hired, and you're like, oh, that's
you have to kind of find your way around it.
Exactly. Yeah.
We were talking about the tech lead, and then Ani said, I love tech lead. Another one from Yash. How do you write your first post? It just makes me uncomfortable that people might not like it, or it won't be good. So how you write your first 8-10 posts to get comfortable with it?
So it seems like you're suggesting that you're going to write 8 to 10 posts and not show anyone until the 10th post. I don't know if that could be wrong, but that seems like a bad strategy. I think that with all this kind of stuff with brand building, you have to just learn to adopt a mindset where you just don't care what people think. I mean, so then what happens? You write a post. I write posts all the time that no one cares about, and that never really goes away. You might write 10 blog posts and one's a hit, and then like 9 no one really cares about, or maybe 2 are good. And so you have to just sort of not care, because with content creating, it's the same thing. Like you can have videos that are doing so well on a platform, and then like your next video just completely flops, and that's just never going to go away. So creating content is really hard, and it's sort of an art, not a science. And you're gonna create bad content, and so just don't worry about it. It happens to everyone, and the only way though you're gonna get better is by actually releasing that content and seeing the feedback. And so that's what is important. And then you sort of just build it in your brain. You're like, okay, it's like muscle memory and sort of like art, where you just sort of realize more and more like, okay, this is good, this isn't good. But the only way you can do that is by actually releasing it and seeing how people react to it.
And I think there's also like an authentic part of it, because if people just wanted to learn things, they could go to a documentation. So if people are going buying Cory's book, they're, consuming the content, they want to learn something from you. So even if something like I think it's very nice when people write on the internet, like, I'm learning about this, and you see their journey. I think it's very authentic and people like it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a really good point. Just to share your journey. People love journey sharing. So whatever you're doing, if you can share that journey, whether you're learning a new framework or learning to code or whatever it is, it's really cool to share your journey. And that's a great starting place.
Yeah, human beings like stories, right?
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, anytime someone's sharing that, like their journey doing something, I'm always sold. So yeah, that's good advice.
It kind of like it grabs your attention. You just have to hear the story. So Stefano is asking, for non-native English speakers, would you still recommend producing content in English, or would you start in your native language?
Amanda, this might be better for you.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe I should reply to that one, if that's okay, Cory. So I actually started writing in English because I wanted to improve my English, but there were many words that I didn't know. So it also got me to learn a lot more, which is interesting because I'm assuming you're Italian, Stefano, because of your name. Let me know if you're wrong. But in Italy, everything related to tech, people just say the word in English, maybe with an Italian accent, but it's still English. So I think it really is up to you and what you're trying to achieve with that. Let's say that you're trying to write something to get a job or to learn something that's very specific to the place where you are. So maybe I would write in my language. So this is something that I'm always debating with myself. It really depends what are my goals for that specific topic, because sometimes there are technologies that I'm writing that, for instance, in my country, in Brazil, they don't even sell that piece of technology yet. So think of, for anything you create, blog posts, videos, think of your audience, who you would like to reach and who would benefit more, or even created it in 2 languages. So I don't think there is a right or wrong answer. It's really up to what you're living at that moment. We have the final question here. If anyone else would like to add anything else while we're reading this one, because Cory said he's available. So from Alina, how do you ensure your book is selected but read? I feel there is so much books and they look the same. How to make people choose my book, course, or etc.? You also have a course, right, Cory?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And it's hard. And I think that it comes down to social proof and reviews. And that's where giving it away for free comes in. A lot of people don't want to give their stuff away for free, but I give my stuff away for free all the time. And if you can give it away to enough people and they enjoy it and they give you a good review, that's how most people make their decision. Is how many reviews does your book have? How many reviews does your course have? And it's super simplistic, but that's just the reality of how most people make decisions. So I would put a huge amount of effort into giving my course or book away for free to as many people as you possibly can. Getting those 5-star reviews.
Very good. One more comment here from Khaldun. In addition to what you said, Amanda, depending on the amount of content of your native language, you want to create both. For example, in Arabic, we currently have a problem that beginners can't find help since most people share in English, so knowledge doesn't spread a lot. So I try to have Arabic experts write more in Arabic. Oh, that's very nice of you to really think of your local community. That's very nice. Cory, there was one question for a very long time ago. It wasn't really a question, like in the sense of you replying, but a link when you're talking about your Facebook group. I don't know if you have that easily there to share, because people were very excited when you were talking about it, and then they were asking about the link, and someone else posted saying, I think it's this one, but we were all curious here if that's actually the link.
Facebook.com/Selftaught Programmers. I think.
Yeah, okay. So it's here in the chat if anyone would like that. We don't have any more questions, but people are very active in here. So you follow him.
Sorry. That's the wrong link. It's actually /group/. Sorry.
Facebook.com. I can delete it. Hang on. I cannot delete it, so you have to just.
Okay, it's the second one. Sorry.
Okay. Oh, I actually can delete message. Okay. Did it go through? I don't know if I delete just for myself or to everyone. No. Anyway, it's the second one.
Sorry about that.
So people asked if you can share your slides, but so the video recording is going to be available. So I believe that's enough, right? We don't actually need the slide. So if you come to the same link of this event, you're going to find the presentation in there. So yeah, I think we replied to everyone. Everyone is happy. Thanks again, Cory, for giving your precious time to us. And I hope you come back in the future to give more talks here.
Absolutely. I would love to. And thank you for having me. This was really, really fun. And thank you so much, everyone, for coming. So have a great rest of your day, everyone. And again, thanks for coming, and talk soon.